Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1, written by Ouija Warrior. A very human dilemma. Human Josh came to my bar again. He often does when stationed side, as my bar is one of the few that have a trained staff, the security measures, and the few extractors required to get a license for serving C2H5OH. A solvent for most races, a fuel for some, but for humans, it is a drink. But lately, Human Josh has been coming by more often and consuming more. And not just the fermented grain product either, but the distilled liquid a few brave traders bring in their holds. So this time, after the bar was near empty, I sat down across from him and coaxed the human into talking. I could not let my best customer and biggest straw drink himself to termination. "Friend Josh," I said in my best interlingua, "are you troubled? Would engaging in conversation help?" He looked at me and smiled, the thing humans do with their mouths, but thankfully did not show teeth. "Friend barkeep," he said as he showed me a set of hollow crystals spread in front of him. "What is a man to do? One may win, but the rest must lose." I looked at the crystals. Each of them displayed a female form of various species and genders. I kept my eyes on them as my secondary eyes glanced back up at the human. "Who do I love?" Josh said. "I'll leave a lot of girls singing the blues." I ignored the reference to color. Humans put a lot of effort into colors, but none of it made sense to me. Instead, I pointed to the closest crystal, assuming that if I kept him talking, he would say something. That was understandable. Nama," Josh said in a low voice. "Meet her in a spaceport bar much like this one. Red as the sands of Mars, hungry to go out and explore, just like me." "Isn't all Message Jacks red?" I replied, trying to grok where this was going. "Not like Nama." Josh stared at nothing for a while, then reached for a different crystal. "Adelaide, Queen of Colony 3, Josh said, his voice sounding different, rich as a poor man's dream. "Hey, Mulsrow, I see Colony 3 is, Hubwards?" "Spine-wise," Josh corrected. "She could have had anyone, but she chose me. Who do I love?" Something stirred in my lower thorax as the human Josh talked. Unease. Or just hunger. It was hours past my last meal, was it not? Human Josh got more animated as he kept talking. He grabbed another crystal to show me. "Now Bellaran, yes, she is a Nebulan. Runs her very own ship. Easily makes 10,000 credits each trip and is, well, energetic in the sleep pod too, if you know what I mean." I didn't tell the human Josh that I didn't. Instead, I refilled his drink. "Zell is the princess of World Kainon," he said as he showed me yet another crystal. "Wild, officially undiscovered, wants to put me on a continent's throne for my knowledge and skills." "That would make it hard to come here for drinks then, if her planet isn't approved." "True," Josh said as he drank the drink. "But who do I love?" He paused for a few seconds as his single pair of eyes scanned the crystal. "Now Ola, priestess of the great Zod's oracle." "I've heard of Zod. The Vabian Scion's god, is it not?" Josh nodded. "She chose me against all odds. Biological incapabilities aside, hers and my children would be gods as well. Who do I love?" I refilled his drink again, but held my tongue. Gods simply had no place in rational universe, but most sentients are irrational. "Yashibal, my Gaia fishy lass," Josh exclaimed as he reached out for the crystal featuring a figure wearing even less than most of the others. "Not her given name, I take it?" "Not really, but I can't pronounce her real name. She has a third-rate ship, but a first-rate gluteus." I looked at the crystal. I looked at Josh. I had my neural implant run the word search. "I don't think the Gaiafists have a muscle analog to the human." He waved at my ejection. I refilled his drink again. "And then," Josh continued, as he reached for the last crystal. There is Virdalia, my warrior queen.
Ah, an Edo Oak, yes. With weapons in all four hands, she looks very much like a warrior.
Best physique I've ever seen, Josh replied, with a clean conscience and a fierce love, too.
The Edo Oak are fierce in all they do, I believe.
Josh was quiet for a while. I followed his lead. Finally, he sighed, the human not word they used when frustrated, angry, or disappointed. You think it's easy, he said as he swept his hand over the 7 hollow crystals. Well, maybe you would, but I have more choices than one man should. There is such a thing as too much good. Who do I love? I refilled his drink, and Josh drank his drink. So here I sit, he said, on a decision's brink. It's growing late, and it's hard to think.
It is getting late, I agreed after scanning the now empty bar. But humans always seem to think all the time.
You might as well bring another bottle, Josh said in a tone I recognized as resigned. Who do I love? What should I do? I looked at the human Josh. I looked closer at him as he was staring at the collection of hollow crystals. I tried to arrange my mouth into a human smile, spreading my dorsal fins wide for him. I felt my skin grow purple as blood rushed through my outer capillaries.
Well, I said as I shifted closer, you could take up an offer of half ownership in my bar.
End of story. Story number 2. Unthinking, written by Discordant Sky. The ship's medbay was dark, lit only by the backup lighting, and the small emergency lamp she'd taken with her didn't help much. There was only one occupant, bedridden and strapped in so as to not float away in the null G. His skin was mottled and sunburned looking, and weeping sores covered a large part of his body, the pus leaking from them seeping into the sheets that were tightly wrapped around him. Occasionally, the globular ball of blood pus would separate and slowly float away on the air currents created by the air recyclers. His eyes swam around the room aimlessly for a moment before slowly focusing on her towering form. The human started before losing track of her for a moment before refocusing a bit more lucidly. Captain? His voice was reedy, a weak phlegm-filled rasp. His lungs must have been half full of the same pus leaking from the rest of his body. The ship's medic had warned her about this. Without thrust, there was no gravity, and without gravity, the fluids were pooling in his body and not draining out like they should. Pneumonia. They described the symptoms to her. She'd known what to expect before she walked in, but seeing it was a different matter. He was drowning, but even without that, he'd be gone soon anyway. The pneumonia was just a symptom of what was really killing him.
How are you?
She immediately cringed at the question.
Any pain?
She said, trying to save herself. He blinked at her slowly before nodding. A little, but the doc's got me pretty juiced up. He let out what could have been a wet cough or an attempt to laugh. I think he's got me on every painkiller there is. She couldn't only in response to that. He weakly nodded at the dim LEDs above her bed. Can't get the core back up. She felt ice run down her spine at the human's question.
We are working on it. Should be a few more hours, she lied.
Despite the medications and the decrepit state of his body, the man still managed to see through it. Don't ride away, Captain. I'd say you owe me that. I did save the ship after all, he laughed. Besides, you're horrible at it.
The core is gone. Total loss in containment, and the magnetic bottle controls are shot. If you hadn't shut it down, we would have lost the ship, she said, looking at the deck. So I was right, he stated before devolving into a coughing fit. Told that furry bastard that we couldn't run that core for that long. You never have gotten along with Huluk, have you? She asked.
No, can't really say that I ever really cared for him, he said. She hated herself for asking, but she had to know.
Then, why did you toss him out?
Then he'd be right here with me, he said simply.
But he could have helped you at least, she said.
Could have,
the human agreed.
but I knew what I needed doing, and I knew that I could do it myself," he said, and fell into a coughing fit. Little globules of bloody mucus escaping between his fingers, and tears began pooling on his face in zero-G. "He might have been an ass, but it doesn't mean that we both had to die like this." She'd watched the video a dozen times. The pair of them had been heading down to the reactor compartment, a customary argument already trucking along between the two of them, when the radiation alarm had begun to blare from their hand terminals and from the ship's speakers. They both pulled their terminals from their pockets and then shared a quick glance at each other, and then the door behind him as it began to close before the human grabbed a fistful of Huluk's uniform and spun on the spot and tossed him through the rapidly closing hatch. "I just did it," the human continued, a wet cough punctuating the sentence as his eyes glossed over. "Didn't even think about it. It just happened." They were silent for a time before she spoke again.
"He wants to talk to you," she ventured.
The dying man waved a weak hand at her. "Later."
"I'll let you get some rest then," she said,
and moved towards the exit. She had her hand on the light switch when the man's voice stopped her. "Leave them be," he said, his voice oddly strong, but tinged with something she couldn't place. I don't want to." He paused for a moment, as if catching himself from saying something he didn't want to. I don't want to go home in the dark." End of story. I would quickly like to thank the Tier 5 members, Marky, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Arnolds, Oakfield, Lord Azrakul, and It's Difficult to Pronounce. Thank you very much.